Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm talking all this time. My mic not even on. But I'm back, fam. I'm back, fam. I'm here. My mic was off, but I'm here. But tonight we're taking it to the D. Taking it to my hometown, Detroit, Michigan. Taking it to the D. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. So I'm very familiar with the YBI story. Went to Kettering High School, went to Barber Middle School, went to Chandler Elementary School, which is defunct right now. Grew up with a lot of people there. I still got a lot of family there. I was just up in Detroit in September. I lost my mom a few months ago. We had to go out there and do her funeral. But I go there. I got my daughter stay there. Got a lot of family there for sure. And I always said Kettering was probably one of my best experiences in life. And you just know a lot of people you grew up with, a lot of family, but we all know, like, you from Detroit, you know about YBI, especially if you're old school. Maybe the younger people, they may not be familiar with that. And a lot of people got emotional ties to those eras. There's a lot of documentaries and stuff out there, from the 70s, the 80s, on this channel. I cover all the eras. But growing up in there, it's sort of like part of the culture of Detroit to follow underground movements, mafia type stuff, gangster stories, who the ballers and all of that. In today's world, there's really no such thing as a kingpin. Like, everybody kingpins nowadays, When I hear a rapper talking about they sell this and that, it don't even surprise me. I actually believe the guy. Back in the day, I'd be like, yeah, right. Today, rappers say I'm selling all this work, I believe them. They're all about keeping it real, But being from Detroit, everybody knows about YBI. And they even said in the BMF story on Starz, the series, that many people emulated YBI. People wanted that organization. And there's a lot of reasons. They were very influential. There's a lot of reasons why they influence people. That's one of those organizations where people made money from the bottom to the top. Like, you a street hustler. They all young. These kids, they kids. They making more than teachers. They making more money than their parents. The top tens and all of that, the campaign hats. People familiar with the White Boy Ricks. They familiar with the Curry Boys, YBI, Pony Down, Best Friends, Demetrius Holloway, Maserati Rick, Big Ed Hanser. There's a lot of people. So the historical facts, and a city like Detroit, they religiously follow that stuff. They really do. But YBI was it was definitely before my era. And people who ran with that crew. They were on the west side. I grew up on the east side. So I didn't visually see that, but the impact was felt for sure. That's for sure. Definitely that. What up, dope fam? Welcome back to GPTV1 Uncut, where we don't do hype. We do history. Tonight, we're talking Detroit. The real Detroit. Not the TV version, not the Instagram version, the blueprint. The death of Milton Butch Jones, one of the most infamous figures from YBI, and how that era connects directly to BMF and their story, including Southwest T, that the world got introduced to through Starz. A lot of people know the names. Fewer people know the structure. Even fewer understand how Detroit shaped the game before the game ever went national. YBI laid the foundation that later crews studied, copied, and expanded. So tonight, we're breaking down legacy, impact, and the line between history and entertainment. This isn't about glorifying, it's about understanding. Because when these figures pass, the conversation doesn't end. It finally gets honest. If you're tapped in, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. And we marching to 9,000 subscribers. GPTV1 Uncut goes live with real conversations only. Drop a comment in the chat. Where you checking in from? And what do you think Detroit's real influence has been on the culture? Oh, well, you know, when the crack era came around, media really started getting in on like the drug dealers, particularly around Detroit. And they made a lot of those figures mythical. White Boy Rick was one of those people. They just blew up in the media, and there's a movie out about that. So it's been a couple stories out of Detroit that had made documentaries and movies and stuff about. So let's go to Butch Jones right here. So this is Butch Jones. He definitely had a huge voice in Detroit. And it's reported that he did not create YBI. He sort of joined the movement while it was already in motion. And YBI was splintered into different factions. Now, you got a lot of old school ex-YBI people. They still feel like they got it going on or whatever. They left a lot of comments on my page. And they really feel like if they don't know you, you don't have street credibility. I'm like, these old school YBI guys, like literally. So all these guys, senior citizens at this point, you know, these 70s and 80s with these guys. But they'll get in the chat and talk about who got street cred or not. They'll be like, hey, I'm YBI. I'll be like, okay. The only catch to that is, well, they claiming if they don't know you, you don't have street cred. First of all, street cred that's dead right there. You know, like when you get up in age, man, you still trying to have street cred. I question that. You know, that's shaky to me. Real, for real. That's really shaking to me. If you like upper in age and you still looking for street cred, to me, that look kind of funny on you. You know what I'm saying? And I always say that you don't have to be like the biggest thing popping. Now, if you don't make it to the pinnacle of your hood, at least you're a hood, I question you. And when you do at least make it to the pinnacle of your hood, you fall into your OG-ness, you know. You don't have much to prove at that point. You already proved that point. Back in those days, you know, I think you should gain that hood notoriety by the time you're 20 years old. Like literally. Now, you 50 years old, you still looking for street cred. I don't know, something wrong with that, buddy. But back to the guys that come in and say, hey, I'm YBI. I'm from this neighborhood. We don't know y'all. What I do is click on their YouTube channel. They don't have no subscribers, no followers, nobody clicking on their channel. But these are the guys that swear that everybody know them and they don't know you. I'm like, okay. Now, you supposed to be popping. When I click on that page, you ain't got no subscribers. You at least have a few hundred. But they got it in chat on quite a few occasions. But Butch Jones, he definitely had a following. He had a big voice. He could have made a big difference, literally, if he had been focused on the right thing. You know, we all know that, well, whoever familiar with the story know that he got caught up in the RICO and getting hit by the feds and basically took him off the street. But within himself, you know, the average time you can be is about 3 years really running hard in the streets doing your thing. Now, some people do last longer. Some people last even shorter than that. But doing good at your peak, man, literally probably 3 years. So he probably had a few years run, and they was going hard. They were going hard. I'm trying to find something here, family. Okay, got it. Yeah, they were going hard, and he got took down by the feds, and he ended up getting out some years later, and he put out this book. They were all on the east side with them books. We bought them and all of that. I used to tell people back then, man, like, because he had such an influence, and a lot of people wanted to be like him. Let's just keep it 1,000. A lot of people didn't know how the YBI thing didn't work. They probably wasn't familiar with Wonderful Wayne and all of that. That's still one of my top stories. People still listening to that, and H2O. They had a big influence up there in Boston, you know. But Butch Jones, like, it was some people that wanted to be like him. I used to tell them back then. I say this with all due respect, you know. You follow Butch Jones, your butt gonna end up like Butch Jones, locked up. This when he had the books and all of that. He put them books out there, and that book really influenced some people. They wanted to be like him, untouchable, but they ain't get the whole message. I'm trying to post something right quick, family, for X and Facebook. Shouts out to Twitch. Shouts out to Facebook. Creating a post for X. So I got to put my posters out there. But yeah, people was reading them books and all. We bought them. You know, they was on the street with like $10 or something like that. And they sold a lot of books. They sold a hell of a lot of books, you know. He was the first one really I know of was opening up about the street life and how they operated over there on the west side, Highland Park, all they know the names of the streets or whatever. But they was going hard with them books, and people were really enthusiastic about that. I was like, man, y'all follow that dude, follow his book, his blueprint on life. Man, you're gonna be messed up, dog. That's a fact. And he ended up catching some other cases or whatever, and then ended up going back in there. And you listen to a lot of these stories, man. You know, a lot of these people be spending a lot of time in prison. Like, they be 50, 55 years old and spend 30 of them in prison. Like, and they so cool with it. They really cool with it. I ain't knocking them, you know. But just to throw away 30 years of my life and just be like, you know. And a lot of those guys do get famous. They got podcasters, you know, different people from different cities, you know. They get a lot of notoriety, you know. They become trending topics on a lot of these podcasters' channels and stuff. You know, they got podcast channels. A lot of these guys used to live their lifestyle, and a lot of those guys have immunity. So they get to openly talk about stuff on the internet. You know, they give up, they could be cooperating with the government. So when they get on the internet, they be telling all kind of stuff. That stuff like Vlad TV is all over that. So go look up some of his videos, you'll see it. They be openly talking about it. You know. So I got to watch what I say on this channel, because me myself, I don't have nothing on my particular record, but I don't get on here to solve crimes, like literally. So when I tell people who I've interviewed on this channel that may have ran the streets or whatever, I tell them before you get on here, look, we ain't talking about none of that stuff right there. Yeah, keep a light on here. You don't know what's going on with some of these people. So I definitely try to stay away from that. So now I'm from the streets, and I kept it in the streets. Let's just call it what it is. Hold on, fam. I'm trying to type something on Facebook right quick. Stay tuned, fam. Give me 1 second. I got to get it out there to Facebook. All right. But yeah, They hit the streets really hard with those books, and then they did an interview. I want to play some of that interview tonight, and just to listen to what he's saying on there, he sounds really slick. But then once you go through the video, he's saying stuff. He didn't follow his own rules, but he's saying some real stuff like you can't hide from these people. If these people go down there and get a sitting president and his wife, and they got armies and stuff around, oh, they can come get you. If they want you, they coming to get you. Like Johnny Curry say, you could be hiding under a canoe. If they want you, they coming to get you. Yeah, they done assassinated presidents before. Okay. Tonight's live stream. Try and type somebody back right quick. Somebody hit me up on social media. All right. There we go. Yeah. But like I was saying, a lot of these guys, they spend a lot of time in prison. Butch definitely spent a lot of time in prison. But he don't have the greatest image. He don't have the greatest image at all. He's known to be this big gangster type of guy. And I seen some video. They were talking about how he wasn't even focused on balling when he got out of there. He was doing a lot of extortion and kidnapping type stuff. I'm like, what? You know, and that's what ultimately I think got him locked back up in prison. But he ain't had no shop set up. And by the time he came out, you know, the police, they hammering on, they know crack. It's crack time. When he was out there, they was pushing heroin. And crack had took over. So now you had, in the 80s, you had multitudes of crack houses every doggone where. So by the time he get out, it's the 90s, and people ain't operating them crack houses like that no more. Like the Chambers brothers, you got a crew that got 15, 20 different crack houses. This ain't that. So when he came out in the 90s, people don't have spots like that. Not like when he was out there. You can move around in Monterey and, you know, the different streets they be naming. That's on the other side of town. But by the time he got out, he wasn't balling like that. He was doing a lot of extortion and bullying and that type gangster shit. You know, he doing gangster shit. So he didn't have the greatest image at all. So let's not sugarcoated or whatever. And his image will never be glossy. It's never going to be that. So, and when you start running that lifestyle, you know, that stuff can follow you around for the rest of your life. And this is a great example of that. So, yeah. By the time he got out, ain't none of them crack houses or nothing like they beating down them crack houses. They done beat them down, set them on fire. You know, it's widely speculated that the police was setting these houses on fire up there in Detroit because you got these random houses catching fire. What I got going on? I think got that. Oh, I got the wrong thing on. Yeah, there we go. You got these random houses catching on fire up there in Detroit. You know, we'd be wondering like, well, how did that catch on fire? You know. But as a young person, I used to be excited. The people that would go on the west side, and they were familiar how they were moving on over there. And the people would come back on the east side, and they would be so animated about it. Like, we used to ask them, we young too. Like, man, tell us about that YBI, man. And they just be, you know, just animating the whole thing out, you know. And I can't lie, I used to be excited to hear YBI stories as a young person. And these people, they weren't particularly a part of the movement, but I knew a few people that was a part of the movement. But then a lot, you know, when you go into the 90s, a lot of these guys, they're not balling and all that stuff. They're not buying, some of these guys, they're not buying kilos. They're buying like ounces, maybe an eighth or something. Because I know I used to serve, like, when I was into that, I used to serve people who used to run with YBI and all that. I used to serve people that ran with all them crews, Chambers Brothers, all that. I mean, them guys not buying kilos and all, at this point. They buying like ounces and eighths and stuff like that. So, but they used to run with the Chambers Brothers, White Boy Rick, and Maserati Rick, or whoever. You know what I'm saying? We done served all them people that used to run with all these crews and all of that. So, you know, that's just a fact. That is a fact. Detroit's Underworld. Let me get to my question. What does the death of Butch Jones teach us about the myth, about mythologizing? This guy right here, they make these myth type figures. That's what they did, and they definitely did that in Detroit. They did that in New York City too with the Supreme Team and all of that. Big Meech is another one too. You know, they make you mythical, and people gonna be talking about you for the rest of the go downs in history. But what does it teach us about making these guys mythical figures, mythical drug figures in American history? Some of these dudes will go into the Mob magazine for sure. Butch Jones probably make it over there. But I really think that Wonderful Wayne probably had a bigger impact than like Butch Jones. Because a lot of those guys up there in Boston, they got respect for this YBI thing. And he took that H2O up there. Yeah, he took that up there to Boston. They say Detroit built the blueprint. I want to find that video with his interview. Let me find that interview. Family, stay tuned, fam. Looking it up now. Butch Jones. All right, I found a piece of it from 12 years ago. Yeah, this is it. Let me play some of this video right here, family. And he basically describing how he was moving around with YBI. For those who are not familiar with Detroit, YBI is widely known as the most influential crew, and all of the crews symbolize them, and they took the blueprint. No doubt. I don't think we'll dispute that. Let me share my screen, family. While I'm showing this video, I need to get over here and leave something on social media. But anyway, family, let me share my screen. This is the infamous Butch Jones. This throwback interview. Let's get some sound going on.
I wanted to see his expression on his face that he had slipped. And I wanted to let him know, you out of there.
Robbing banks was little more than a pastime.
I would go in the bank, get a lady the note, and just to see the expression on her face, you know, it was just an easy rip.
Before his 25th birthday, he was leading the most notorious drug trafficking ring in Detroit history. At its height, Young Boys Incorporated, as the gang was known, was grossing $100,000 a day.
I had to have it. It was like oxygen to me. I can't breathe without no money.
Hey, Pop was still in the building when he came out. The hip-hop thing wasn't really popping then yet. Y'all hear that music? Hip-hop wasn't popping yet. And they put Adidas on the map in Detroit. It sure wasn't Run DMC. That's that funk, baby. As a matter of fact, I don't need to play that because I may get copyright hit. So let me scoot past that.
E-R-T, capital M-C-C-O-Y. The Fantastic Four was singing there. That was Sweet James, they did.
I actually know that group too, the Fantastic Four. They were a lot older when I met them. Basically, they're right next door to them.
The whole world's a stage. Pretty good group. Everybody liked
Yep.
it. And then there was a guy that I went to school with named Jimmy Edwards from the Superlatives. They were doing
Let me scoot it up some, family.
Something of that nature, you know. And so I turned to crime. People that I was running with was committing crime, you know, and I just kind of fell into the groove. You know, I started emulating what I seen.
You didn't start off with heroin right away.
No,
How did you start in crime?
I started skipping school, missing school, you know, and just things was available, you know. I remember one time the taxi cab driver, Dexter and Dwayne, they used to be, all the cabs used to come up there. It was like, that was the Monster Burger. And at that particular time, the cab driver used to keep their money in a cigar box. Cab driver get out the cab, he go in the Monster Burger. So me and my man Ricky, we just seen the opportunity and was like, we gonna get that cab driver. We went in, we got his money out of the cab, started running down the street hollering rip. It was an opportunity and we seen it, and it just started like that, you know.
Yeah, me and Butch Jones.
That's how I started, huh?
Stuff, man, new in the hood, man, just messing around as young guys, man.
Well, we grew up, man, it wasn't
Dexter,
that
West
bad.
Side,
It was
baby.
around here when I was growing up, you know what I mean? My brother, he was always a go-getter, you know what I mean? If we didn't have enough for Christmas, he made sure that we did, you know?
Well, me and Baby grew up together, so little guy, come on, we were always gonna be cool. Butch used to come over and pick brother up, and we shoot slingshots and BB guns and shit. And when he got in the game, some came up missing. After that, he ain't fucking with me no more. See what I'm saying? We had just got in, man. I think we flipped like 2 packs. Then after that, everything couldn't crash it down.
There was a bunch of petty crimes, things of this nature. And so I started buying clothes, Parker sweaters, you know, gabardine pants and suede jackets, leather jackets, you know. There was a lot of material stuff, you know, but at that point, I knew I couldn't come in here and ask my mother and father to buy it for me.
Which my dad was a hell of a provider, you know what I mean? But my brother, he always doing the extras, you know what I mean? And everybody around the neighborhood loved him, you know what I mean? Everybody wanted to be like him.
I started doing things. I just stopped going to school altogether, and I started working for my brother-in-law, selling penny caps, which was heroin at that particular time.
Yeah, them penny caps. Let's put it up some, fam.
He was some people's God. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Put it like that. You know, every day was like school. You know what I'm saying? That's all he's doing is teaching me stuff. Very smart. He man, dude on point. He definitely taught me stuff that no other father would, you know, teach a kid, you know. And I thank him for that too.
You know what? You know, these guys, they be smart. They be intelligent guys. Like, when you look at these stories, these guys be some smart guys. They may be using it for the wrong thing, but a lot of time they be too smart. And I think Butch Jones is one of those guys that was just too smart, you know. But a lot of those guys be smart. It takes some real scientists to pull off some of the stuff they be pulling off.
Doug, all I know is he the dude that put it down. All I know is you see Butch, you see a whole lot of money. That was it. That's all I remember about Butch.
You had guys doing anything and everything.
The B-boy stand.
You know, and it wasn't you wasn't going to
No,
do
they
it.
old
If they didn't do it, you know, they would end up dead, you know.
The hook was to try to recruit at an early age so you could mainstream these young kids into the organization. So by the time they were 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they were aware of the mechanism. You know, they had on-the-job training.
He would buy young guys
With them Adidas.
top 10, Levi's, silk shirts. You know, then they seen Butch riding around in Benz and Cadillacs. You know, they liked that. You know, even me today. I grew up watching guys who was gangbangers,
Boom, Nate Boom,
dope dealers, You know, I grew up, had a good life. My father always worked at Ford Motor Company. We never had wanting for nothing as kids, but it was just something excited me about, you know, guys making money.
Like it would do anybody.
In Detroit, big money in the pockets of small boys has the attention of federal investigators.
Young dealers can make up to $800 a day, possess an arsenal of weapons, and readily kill to protect their turf and profits. The smallest confrontation can become a matter of...
Let me scoot it up,
Drove on select few from Jones' neighborhood to a few hundred. The gang reached a level of sophistication never before attained by an urban drug gang. YBI starts a national trend, moving boldly to the street corners, selling heroin openly, daring the police to catch them.
You said you did $20,000 a day heroin traffic out of this neighborhood.
Off the street.
Off this street?
Right.
Just this 1 or 2 block stretch?
Right. Just this 1 block stretch.
How do you do that?
Fact, I've been on blocks
you know,
like that.
We had tight security, and it was our stronghold, so to speak. You know, this is where the young boys was from. We was from Martindale, and we was from Dexter, you know.
I can agree with that. You know, I've been on blocks like that where they booming, you know, back in my younger days or whatever. These blocks be doing tens of thousands of dollars. You know, it's something you see firsthand. You know, you get out there, man, people that use heroin and all that stuff, they usually get up early in the morning. So these guys up like 6 o'clock in the morning on the track, getting it in like all day. Then they shut down maybe 5 o'clock, then they're just totally over. Like, you're not gonna make any money during that time. Not with no people that shooting up and all that time. That's definitely a daytime type of hustle. You got to be up early. And a lot of times by the afternoon come, the operation be shut down. So much love to Big Butch. Shouts out to Rasheem Major. Like I say, Butch got some love out there. You know, he had a lot of fans. He had a huge voice. And I think Butch, this is just my opinion, some people may think differently. And then you have people that do podcasts and stuff. They used to live that life. They was on that grand scale, kingpin type of level, worldwide, flying here and there. They may not look at Butch like that. You know, if you serving Butch, you probably not looking at him like he the big guy. And it's not like YBI probably wasn't the biggest. They had the biggest influence. BMF was probably way larger than YBI. But it's the influence that makes it stand out with these guys. So Butch definitely had in my opinion, one of the hugest voices in the underworld in the history of Detroit. He had a powerful voice. He had a lot of fans. He had a lot of people that followed him. You know, I wasn't one of those people or whatever, but I was excited to hear about their movements or whatever. But I can assure you that there's people out there that love Butch. So I want to show that comment right there. Thank you to Rasheem Major. You stepped in the building. It's your first time here. Click that subscribe button. Help me get to 9,000 subscribers. Shouts out to Truth Radio. I can't forget my guy Truth. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me last week. I really had a good time with that show. Truth Radio is from 88.3 FM, Little Rock, Arkansas. You all can go Google that and look that up and listen to his show. He plays some incredible music on that show. I had a chance to click on to the show, and he plays some really, really good music on that show. I'm telling you. So look up the Truth Radio Show, 88.3 FM, Little Rock, Arkansas. Back to Butch, though. But yeah, in my opinion, he had one of the biggest voices, powerful voices in the history of Detroit. To me, they the #1 crew out of Detroit. And I don't want to keep saying that because some of those YBI guys be getting in the chat and stuff. Hey, man, we don't know you, man. I'm YBI. I'm from Dexter and such and such. Okay, dog. I'm going to click on your YouTube page, and I don't see that big following you say you got. Remember, YBI done fell back, buddy. That was way back in the 70s and 80s, maybe some of the 90s, but it is what it is. Let's look at a little bit more of this video right here.
And
and how did you have the security set up?
well, I had a man down on the corner with a walkie-talkie, and I had one down there on the corner with a walkie-talkie. And that was the only two ways the police could come. Either they could come from Portland or they could come from Elmhurst. And that was it. And by the time if somebody hollered off the hook, we out of here.
Whoa,
we bailed.
the hook.
So basically, it was nothing they could do.
They call it the popo nowadays, but back in the day, they called them the hook.
We always stayed.
Dig him with the old school jargon.
The flag, we wasn't never out, and the customers knew that. They knew if they came over here, we was gonna always have something.
Somebody do it like dog do it. Dog getting 4, he put it for 3. Dog, we getting like this. Well, what I got to do, I do, yo, dog was getting his money. He came up in the game fast. I wish my man would have just laid on back with his money. See what I'm saying?
At the age of 12 years old, I was making $7,000, $8,000 a day. At 12, at the age of 12.
At the age of 12, baby.
Having fun, man. Going to wheel skate ring, throwing money away, so that people can fight in the crowd. Throwing 300-400 worth of ones in the air. Just having fun.
Yeah, that's one of the significant things about when you start hustling and you start getting money at a young age. You really don't know what to do with it. You start throwing it away. That's a fact, And me, when I ran the streets of Crops, was certainly not Butch Jones and all of them. But boy, I wish I can get back some of them dollars I was throwing away. Like you start counting that stuff up, you're like, man, I was just a waste of time, I wish I can get back some of them dollars I was throwing away. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
Back then, man, that's what it was really all about.
Yeah, I don't want to play too much of that. Them copyrights. So they were all in the media. You can see it's all in the media and all of that. And that's what happened with these stories. The media come in, they start blowing them up, and they start making these guys mythical. They really do. So you can see it yourself. They was all news reporters, and some people done built careers off telling these stories and following these stories. There's a lot of people done built platforms and media outlets. Matter of fact, there's another one on this report broke about him death from Gangster Report. If you like to listen to mob type stuff, underworld type of stuff, this probably be one of the spots you go to. They stay on top of the stuff on things like this. Let me go back here to my other page. Let me see where I'm at. All right, Butch Jones. Go back here to Butch. Milton Butch Jones, a longtime leader of the notorious Detroit heroin gang Young Boys Incorporated, died this week of a heart attack at the age of 70, shortly after being released from a halfway house. Well, at least he didn't spend the rest of his life in prison. Like a lot of people thought he was, but some people say he started snitching and stuff like that. A lot of those people really started giving up information. Who he was. Jones was a central figure in Detroit's drug trade in the 1970s and 1980s, leading YBI and building a highly organized distribution network that transformed how narcotics were moved and marketed in the U.S. cities. He was often described as the Henry Ford of heroin, renowned for innovating the business side of drug distribution and supply. Jones's career was marked by violence and federal prosecution. He served a lengthy prison term after being convicted in connection with drug trafficking and 2 murders. YBI at its peak was responsible for transporting millions in heroin across Detroit, often employing minors on school grounds and creative distribution strategies. After initial incarceration in the mid-1980s, he returned to the Underworld and later received a 30-year federal sentence in 2008 for continued narcotics distribution and associated violent crimes. The historical impact. YBI's model influenced later gangs, including Black Mafia Family, BMF, and organization and branding. Law enforcement considered Jones a major catalyst in Detroit's drug war era, reshaping inner city crime networks. Yeah. But that's Butch Jones, ladies and gentlemen. He passed away. And the YBI, they always gonna have that impact. That's a fact. And BMF, they from the D-Town too. They got some of that YBI flavor, just like everybody else did. And BMF ain't no different. You from Detroit, you a hustler, you come from them eras, YBI influenced you. Now, I think they will say that themselves. They will say that themselves. That's a fact. So, Butch Jones, remembering YBI's Butch Jones, his legacy and his impact. All right, let me stop sharing that, family. BMF, you're another one of the major crews out of the D. They say the D make the blueprint. What y'all think? Do y'all think Detroit got that blueprint or had the blueprint? Did BMF do justice to the real story of the Flannery brothers? Or did it romanticize criminal enterprise? With documentaries now taking center stage, are audiences craving realism or with dramatized? Let me just skip over that word. Some of these words I can't even get out. Dramatization. I know somebody out there corrected me. But anyway, how much should producers like 50 Cent be involved in shaping stories of real people, especially when those stories involve controversial figures? So he coming out with his own thing on the Starz network, and I've seen some clips of it on YouTube. So let me go back to that. I think he's telling some of his stories, and because really most of that stuff been about them being together as a crew or whatever. And we all know they separated and went their own ways or whatever. But let's play some of the trailer, family. Stay tuned, family. Let me share my screen. From the streets to stars, facts versus fiction. Let me share my screen, family. Just check out this trailer. Hold on, I got to get it set up. And I looked at when I looked at the BMF, I think it was last season when I finally watched some of the BMF, because people kept calling me, and people be calling me, asking me about Detroit and all that stuff. And I haven't did any videos about the D in a while. You know, I had it going on up there for a minute. There's a lot of Detroit stories on my channel, but I had a chance to look at the series, and I was like, whoever wrote that script, they must be from Detroit, because they use a lot of jargon, Detroit jargon. And when people see me, or people like my family or whatever, they be, what up, though? What up, though? What up, though? So a lot of people saying, what up, though, to us. So that movie right there really got people saying that. I mean, that BMF series. But let's check out the trailer. Let me share my screen, family. You stepping in, do me a solid and click that like button. It helps spreads the algorithm. Say you brought the heat by talking on the phone. At least that's what he say.
Hey, rest. He's
and that. Yeah, that was deep. That was interesting, you know, and that's sort of what I thought that Butch could have did that with YBI. I really thought he could have really turned that YBI thing around, like literally. Yeah, but I thought Butch would be able to do that. But sometimes that gangsterism just be in you, and I think Milton had it in him like that, you know. But like BMF, you still can turn that around. like literally, and use it for positive things. So, you live and you learn. But when you look at the amount of prison time you get, that money literally becomes minimum wage. And you start to be surprised at all the people that be snitching on you. But I think both of the brothers blaming each other from the downfall of BMF, initial downfall, them getting raided and all that. I think it was interviews of Big Meech was saying, well, this guy was talking on the phone, he talking. You laying low. Well, it's people that's locked up in prison is laying low. So it don't matter if you laying low, you doing it big or whatever, But I always say the best thing is to lay low. That's what I always say. Stay out the way, Stay out of the clubs. The clubs itself, that alone by itself brings a lot of drama, There's so many people watching you. And Big Meech was a very notable person down there. So the average Joe come in the club, and they see BMF coming, they getting out of the club because they know they can't hang in there. They know the money coming in the building then. So all the little small fry, they hit the road like we out of here. We ain't got a chance with these guys in here, And Big Meech helped some of them rappers down there. His parties, they playing their music at their parties or whatever, and he tried to get a record label and all that stuff off the ground. He tried to make BMF into like an entertainment type thing. But according to this guy, he talked to Chapo himself. So go check out that Starz. Check out that series on Starz. That seems very interesting. I'm about to check it out myself. So shouts out to Southwest T. Keep doing your thing. And it's a better way, man. Like, if you look at all the job titles that go into having a movement like that, you got to have CEOs, you got to have couriers. Different people got to play different roles. And all that stuff can be used in a legitimate business. It may take a little longer for you to pop your thing off. As well as drugs, it may come more quicker and instant. But in a lot of cases, the quicker it come, the quicker it go. And that's a long time these guys lasted. They lasted way longer than Butch Jones. For sure. So they had a long run with this game. And you live and you learn. This is GPTV1 Uncut. Talking about Southwest T. The Detroit connection. Did BMF do justice to the real story of the Flannery brothers? I don't know, man. Southwest T out there telling the story right now. That's his thing. He got the right to do that. And again, a lot of those ex-drug dealers and all that stuff, they got their names be popping. They got podcasts and all of that. All right, fam, before we wrap this up, tonight wasn't about sensationalism. It was about context. Detroit doesn't get written into history books the same way other cities do, but the influence is undeniable. From YBI to BMF, these stories didn't start on television. They started up in real neighborhoods with real consequences and real people still living with the aftermath. As time passes, and names fade, the responsibility shifts to us to talk about these stories honestly, not to glorify them, but to understand how power, economics, and survival shaped an era. Because if you don't control the narrative, someone else will, and they usually get it wrong. If this conversation added value, hit that like button. Subscribe to GPTV1 so you don't miss future live discussions. We go where others won't. Share this stream with someone who understands Detroit history, runs deeper than TV scripts. Drop a comment. What part of Detroit's story do you think still hasn't been told? We appreciate everyone who tapped in live and everyone catching the replay. This is GPTV1 Uncut. Real talk, real history, no hype. We'll see you on the next one.
Came up out the concrete, dust on my sneakers. Dark nights, cold streets, talking to the dreamers. Whispers in the alley say the world don't need us. But I saw a throne in the smoke like Jesus. Heart of a soldier, hands of a builder. Mind like a king, but the pain got realer. Cameras show the wars that the world won't witness. Shatter empire, I was born in the trenches. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. Crawled out the fire, but the flames still touch you. From the mud, from the bottom, yeah, I came from the struggle. Now I'm standing on the mountain, watching how the world hustle. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. Bloodlines built empires, legends and ghosts. Families torn apart for who wanted it most. We was chasing silver, chasing gold, chasing hope. Trying to pay for a future on a promise note. Seen kings fall quick when the hunger got louder. Seen angels turn stone when the city got prouder. Shadow empire, I survived that thunder. Bag in my hand, but I'm thinking about wonder. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. Crawled out the fire, but the flames still touch you. From the mud, from the bottom, yeah, I came from the struggle. Now I'm standing on the mountain, watching how the world hustle. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. For the money, but the money don't love you. Love for the money, but the money don't love you. For the money, but the money don't love you. We ain't never had nothing, so we learn how to take. Turn hunger to diamonds, turn pressure to faith. If the gold ever fades, remember the pain, remember the rain, remember the name.